All right, so we found this video, 10 gaming concepts that have vanished. I myself am an avid gamer. I've been gaming since I was very, very young. I've been gaming for 33, 34 years, 35 years, something like that now. I've been gaming for a very long time. I've noticed a lot of trends that come and go with games throughout the years, and I feel like I've played everything. So I'm excited to get in, watch this, see what these trends are, and have a discussion with you guys about it.
Game design is an ever-evolving medium, and sometimes things just drop off. Hi folks, it's Falcon, and today on Game Ranks, 10 game concepts that have been forgotten. Starting off with number 10, content that can be permanently missed.
Shit, we are like jumping right into it, right?
This is one of those concepts I think a lot of people are glad to see forgotten, but there is actually some value in it, I think.
I remember this. I remember a shitload of games that had very big missables, to where you would, like, the day you started playing the game, you would get like a gamer guide, or you would get online if the internet was created, and the first thing you would look up is, are there any missable items in, and you would type in your game just to make sure that you didn't make the wrong choice while you were playing through the game, because there was nothing worse than getting 80 or 100 hours in a game or in a file and having to completely reset just to get the one item, just because your gamer OCD wouldn't let you down. You know what I mean? Like, it wouldn't let it go. Are we on YouTube? I mean, we will be.
With most games now, it's really rare you'll run into content that's permanently missable. Games will go out of their way to make sure you get a chance to see everything that you want to. Like if your hometown gets blown up in the start, that the quests that you don't finish there usually show up somewhere else. If you miss an item in a dungeon that you can't come back to, it just shows up again somewhere else, or appears in a special lost items chest or something. All that stuff is good, because it sucks to...
It's good for the completionist in you, but it creates lazy gamers who don't really think through anything they're doing, and they just rush through content. I myself have developed into a lazy gamer. I don't read things. I don't worry about stuff. The game will tell me if I'm doing something wrong. The game will force my hand or let me know at the last moment. So because of that, I pay next to no attention compared to what I used to do 10 or 15 years ago, which was read every line that came up.
Miss out on things you wanted to do, and in some ways games bend over backwards to accommodate the player that can limit the game's potential. Like, how many games now make it so you really can't make any big choices anymore?
I don't read things. Such a true statement. Hobos are very aware of it. I mean, any more gamers don't read. Gamers don't need to read. The game will tell you. You go in and you hit buttons until things work. That's how gamers do.
Nothing that's actually going to change the entire direction of the game or lock you out of certain interactions. It's just not there. Like Persona 5, there's stuff you can miss, like the will seeds and whatnot, but that doesn't change the direction of the game. Like, there's minor variations like that, but big stuff doesn't usually change. In a way, these things are designed to avoid player frustration, and I get it, because it does. People don't want to make a...
These are designed to cater to people. It's what it is. Like, it was very frustrating back in the day to play through a game just to find out you missed a missable. But then everybody figured out what all the missables were. Do you know what I mean? Like, it definitely curbs player frustration, but it was done just to placate people. This is the only reason. You enjoyed killing entire city in Sims 3, being a completionist. I mean, I like being a completionist in games. Oh, I hate the who do you save stuff. It gives you anxiety. I can see that. I'm the same way. But I like to have fun, and normally I'll save before stuff like that happens, and then I'll like save scum it and do both sides. See what Twitch said about the whole rating thing? I did not. What'd they say? Tell me about it, Lamia. Was it a tweet? I think if you've been rated in on a raid, then it doesn't let you like go with the raid. I'm curious though. You might have to send it to me in Discord or something. Unless there's a video for it.
Decision they perceive as wrong or causes them to miss out on something, but they also want
some Mass Effect right there.
Choices to matter. It's a tough position for developers, even the ones who are...
I hate when they like change dialogue to where there's no way to mess it up, or when they change dialogue and you give like the shittiest, most asshole answer, and then the person's like, yeah, I get it, blah, blah, blah. But, and you're like, you would have done the same thing either way. Why even give me the sense of, you know what I mean? Like, why even give me the sense of having a decision when the game's scripted in a way that it's never going to matter? Just send it to me. Twitch support. We found 3 scenarios that could happen. Yeah, I'll have to check it out.
Really good at it, like CD Projekt Red and Witcher 3, they get criticized for this kind of thing. There's a lot of people out there who are kind of nostalgic for the way games were when you could really miss out on something major. It makes a game more replayable, but yeah, it also can be very frustrating. At number 9...
God, we just spent forever talking about that. But the real judge would tell us all to quit our jobs and just play games. I mean, he might.
Is real-time squad commands in action games? Like, what happened to this? Like, games like Mass Effect were so much fun. You could order your allies around, command them to do special attacks. You could do this in the middle of combat. It was the perfect mix of tactical but still exciting, and it's kind of shocking that more games haven't tried to copy that, or that it's kind of just disappeared. The only other time I can really think of it is the Bureau XCOM.
So, you can order Kelvin around. Kelvin's such a waste in the Suns. We're not going to talk about him being a waste. So like squad orders and RTS kind of stuff, it was nice, but it seems like game AI and a few other things would impede it being as practical as anybody would like, to me. And over time, it just became a thing where I just kind of felt hassled to do it. So then I just couldn't be bothered to do it anyway. And it felt like an item in a game that you could just completely omit and nobody would notice. And I think that's probably why this has went by the wayside, is because most people never really used it or used it enough to make developing the AI for your teammates to that level. And it's just better to give them general AI. I'm not saying that it maybe shouldn't come back, but I could see why most people don't waste the development time on that type of AI development. So I'm going to keep this part, but using the squad and all that kind of stuff, it incentivizes you to not play the game. You're trying to use tactics and stuff like that. And a lot of gamers want to get in and play the game. They don't want to sit down and command a bunch of units around to play the game for them and sit there and strategize. I'm not saying gamers don't, and I'm not saying there's not a subset of gamers that don't really enjoy like the tactical side, but I think most gamers sit down and they just want to play the game and they want to have a good time and they want to have fun. They want to get in and they want to do it themselves. And going through all the like mental gymnastics and the strategy stuff, most people are they just can't be bothered with it.
But that didn't really do that well. The closest thing I can basically think of is the Guardians of the Galaxy game, which was fantastic, a huge surprise, and also kind of quietly passed.
I have no idea, Fluffy.
We need more like this. It works. At number 8 is risky traversal.
I know they say it works, but I think it works for a specific type of gamer, and most games are made for the broader public. The Guardians of the Galaxy game looked cool. Never even heard of it.
Mechanics. Getting around in most games these days, pretty much a breeze. Spider-Man, Batman, Assassin's Creed, hell, even any given Uncharted game. Basically, all you have to do is get around, is point yourself in the direction you want to go and go. There's no real danger to getting around, at least not from the environment itself. That part's almost completely automated for you at this point.
Right.
Obviously, platforming is still alive in the 2D space and a few rare 3D games, but for the most part, if you want to get around in a big budget action game, you're not really going to have a tough time. It wasn't always the case. A lot of action games, traversal was a real challenge, and I'm talking about games like the original Tomb Raider games.
Yeah, but those games are a lot smaller. To be fair, for a lot of these games, the older games, the games themselves were a lot smaller. So as bad as it is to say that terrain was a difficulty, it just slowed down your gameplay. Do you know what I mean? Yeah, you really can't compare the two, because like a game like the original Tomb Raider versus a game like the new Spider-Man, just the sheer size and scale of everything, if you had to do it the old way, you would never get anywhere. So it's a way to combat the size and scale and the realism that games are trying to move towards, and that makes sense to me.
Prince of Persia, that could be real nerve-wracking. Prince of Persia Reboot on the Xbox and PS2 was one of the first games to try to modernize that kind of cinematic platformer, but that doesn't...
It was savage, wasn't it? It was savage. Hold on. Let me bring this up. All right. Shovel Knight. I don't even know what Shovel Knight was.
mean the traversal was easy.
Is that Prince of Persia?
easy in that game, it was still a real threat in a lot of cases, and that's even keeping in mind the more player-friendly controls. That game's version of traversal kind of got lost at a certain point, and a lot of modern games
I loved Prince of Persia. I thought Prince of Persia was great.
could actually be improved by making their movement mechanics have some element of danger while still feeling fair.
I mean, it would be great if you missed a grapple with Spider-Man and just smoked the road and it just game overed you. I'm not going to say it wouldn't be nice to have, I'm not going to say it wouldn't be nice to have some sort of element of danger to your movement abilities, so I'm okay with that.
At number 7 is insulting easy modes. So many games used to give you shit for being on easy, or like using cheats, or basically doing anything that went against the game designer's
Fluffy's just being fluffy. Time him out back.
quote-unquote vision. They let you do it, but they made fun of you a little bit for it, kind of acted like you were being insulting to them. But it's also kind of like, no, I gave you 50, 60 bucks for this. I don't think you should be insulting me for how I use it. So there's kind of like a back and forth on this.
So I don't know how you guys feel about this. I don't know how you guys feel about this, but I know I grew up in the generation where games, like he said, did give you shit for playing on easy mode, and it put a taste in my mouth that playing on anything short of like normal or hard is just like, it's just training wheels. So I understand where he's coming from here. I think it's probably a good thing for the industry to maybe not downplay it some, but I had a lot of fun with it because it was just gaming culture. And I don't think we need to like gentrify gaming culture and what it is just to placate some people. So is it a good thing that they're doing it? Maybe, but dude, like still call me a pussy if I want to play on easy mode. You know what I mean? Like I'm fine with that.
Because honestly, I think that it's funny when I get made fun of for playing on easy mode.
Exactly. As I was saying, why the hell don't they make a new Prince of Persia game? I have no idea why they haven't remade Prince of Persia
In a game, but it's also kind of weird. It can come off a little petty and mean-spirited, especially given how games have become more accessible over time.
I'm fine with it. Go ahead and call me a bitch. I'm fine with it. If I'm playing on easy mode, you can call me a bitch.
So that more people can play them. I don't know. I go back and forth on it. Sometimes
I see where he's coming from because he goes back and forth on it. My guess is he goes back and forth on it because he likes the meme. This is only my assumption. He likes the meme of the funny part for playing on easy, but he's also trying to not be a bad guy by being like, nah, it needs to be there.
it really does give the game some character. Like Wolfenstein labeled easy mode, "Can I play daddy?" and had a picture of the main guy in a baby bonnet. Probably the most harsh of these is the one.
Play easy mode because I suck so badly in most gaming. I like that there are options. There should be options. And I think, yeah, Origami's saying they play on easy. Lamia is saying they play on easy. I get that there's an easy mode. I don't see why that makes people mad. I don't think that what they're saying here is that it makes people mad. It's just when you played on easy mode, it used to meme at you, and that's kind of went away.
One from Ninja Gaiden on the Xbox with the Ninja Dog difficulty. They really rub it in when you select that one. It's a little overboard, actually.
It seems I have greatly overestimated you. Oh well, we have no choice but to proceed. I will support you in every way that I can. Don't be overconfident.
People now see difficulty options as a form of accessibility, like I said.
Right, and I get it.
So adding insulting messages to them isn't something considered is called for. Like there's a reason this concept has been mostly forgotten. It doesn't seem like it has a place in modern gaming, even though it
Yeah. With the bonnet, thank you. I see. I was less smart. Oh, I'm super cheap. I mean, same. But I like that we had to be better than the game we were trying. Yeah. I do like to work my way up in difficulties, though. I think everybody does, and I don't think there's anything wrong with starting out on lower difficulty or what's considered easy. So I personally just embraced the meme fun of it. Funny, though, because you like playing Bloodborne and Elden Ring.
It's still funny,
there you go.
To me at least. I don't know. Like I said, it's one I go back and forth on. I'm happy when more people are able to enjoy a game. And it
I think he goes back and forth on it because he doesn't want to come off as insulting.
doesn't change
And it's not insulting.
the game fundamentally anyways. At number 6 is Bad Guy
But fuck Crash Bandicoot.
campaigns. Like most of the time, game has a single player mode, there's going to be one campaign. It may be that publishers researched it and found that most people just play as the good guys all the time, but it seems like you really just never see games that give you multiple campaigns, especially ones where you play as the bad guys in one of them. It was most commonly seen in old...
Did they have games where they came out with 2 completely separate campaigns? Is that a thing?
like real-time strategy games like Red Alert and StarCraft, but they weren't the only games. Like Transformers War of Cybertron had separate stories for bad guys and good guys. You could play them and then...
That's interesting. That's why you like Kothor. You can do both good and bad. Look, I'm nostalgic with Crash, but playing now as opposed to then, fuck that, yeah. Dude, Crash is a tough game. It can be, for sure.
Any order you wanted. The first Lego Batman game had a whole villain story, too. It had remixed levels where you play out the story as Batman's Rogues Gallery instead of as the Caped Crusader. It was a great idea and something I wish more games would try to do.
I think the reason a lot of games don't do it, especially in like AAA games today, is there is just so much that goes into developing even one storyline that going through and putting a separate one in and effectively selling like 1.5 games is just too much. Do you know what I mean? They just don't want to do it for free.
Alternative story modes in general are almost never packed in with games anymore. They're almost always DLC now, and that kind of feels like a shame.
It feels like a shame, but I get it. They've got to make money.
At number 5, building a town minigame. There's a lot of games where you can buy houses and decorate them, but for the most part, it's pretty simple and cosmetic.
Right.
But every once in a while, you get a game that scratches the city building itch. Probably the most well-known games to do this are the Dark Cloud games for PlayStation 2, where the whole game is about exploring dungeons and rebuilding towns. It's a really satisfying gameplay loop because all the resources you collect in the dungeon aren't just abstract stuff. You actually take it, put it in the game world, and walk around and look at your handiwork.
I have never played that, but just the overhead map and the way it zoomed in made it look cool as shit.
The original for this is probably ActRaiser, where the gameplay was split between SimCity
Oh my god, that looks like a Nintendo game.
style town building and 2D side-scrolling action.
That literally looks like they took Zelda 1 and Zelda 2 and just merged them. You're cool as shit? No, you're cool as shit.
Fallout 4 deserves a mention here as well. You have to keep people happy and defended in your colonies by setting up power and shelter. Let's just say older games did it better.
I can agree with that. I can agree with that because newer games aren't spending the time doing it.
In my opinion, though.
Probably because... so I'm going to assume just because if they do it, just the amount of resources to invest and then make it look good is just going to be so prohibitive.
Not that it's terrible, but it can be very tedious. City building is a lot of fun, and it's even better when you can actually walk around in your cities.
That is
That's
true.
kind of what this concept is all about.
That is true.
At number 4 is save limits. It's easy to take saving for granted
Yeah, it is.
now, but a lot of older games didn't make the simple act of saving such an obvious choice. Instead of giving you an infinite amount of saves and save where you wanted, games would limit your ability to save in some way, so it forces you to make decisions.
Yep.
Like, do I really need to save my game now? It's usually done by giving you a limited supply of items that
I remember ink ribbons in Resident Evil.
you can spend to save, like the ink ribbons in Resident Evil or the Kong coins in Donkey Kong Country 2.
I remember
A lot of people
this.
really hate stuff like this because they're busy. They might have kids, demanding job, don't have all the free time in the world, and could be interrupted at any moment. So being able to save
So limited and save. Seen your husband play some of them? Yeah.
and quit whenever you want is kind of how every game should do it. But I will say so.
I think that in the past, back when you did have like limited saves, video games were sort of geared for kids, even though adults played them, right? Because like video games were new at the time or newer. So when developers were looking at things, in order to decrease the difficulty, they would limit the amount of times you could save because they felt like you had unlimited amount of time to play it. I do agree that people are busy when you're playing a single player style game. You should be able to save the game at regular intervals because there's nothing more frustrating than losing like 2 hours worth of work. Like that will make you shut off a game or make you walk away from a game and never even come back to it.
Sometimes I do like seeing stuff like this, even if it's kind of scary at first. One of the few recent games that actually forces you to use an item to save is a survival horror throwback, Signalis. It works in the right way because it adds a layer of tension.
Autosave games are your shit. You don't care what anybody says. The worst part is when you when it auto saves, and then your autosave is in just a terrible spot. How you doing, Maki? I'm having an amazing day. How are you doing?
To the experience that isn't there normally, and it also doesn't overdo it. Like Donkey Kong Country 2 was harsh. At number 3 is bizarrely complex creature raising minigames, a concept that's kind of intentionally out of style. Back in the
I don't know. And then you manually save yeah. Anytime I have an autosave, I manually save because I don't trust autosaves because I'm from the game, I'm from the generation where I would save my file in 3 different slots.
90s, when Tamagotchi was big, Pokemon and Digimon were everywhere. People were just monster raising crazy. So for a while, a lot of big games, for whatever reason, included some really complex creature raising minigames just because. Probably the most noteworthy I can think of is the Chocobo raising minigame of Final Fantasy.
The Chocobo raising minigame on Final Fantasy was such a frustrating concept when you were a kid trying to figure it out, but it was oddly satisfying when you finally got your gold chocobo that you bred up.
7 and the kind of bizarre Chow raising from Sonic Adventure 1 and 2.
Digimon was your favorite anime series? God, I have so many good anime series.
With Chocobo racing, at least it served a purpose.
That is true. Chocobo racing in 7 served a purpose, a very large purpose actually. Because it was the only way to get some of the best items in the game. You loved Chocobo racing, but you were already older. Gotcha. I remembered playing it, back when I was a kid. You actually got a Digimon Tamagotchi a couple years ago. You kept killing it. You didn't have time to take care of them. Get rid of the kids. You have tons of time. And if you don't have kids, then I don't know. I don't have kids. I would probably still kill one.
And fit into the world of Final Fantasy. The Chocobos have been there since forever. Having an actual layered way of interacting with them, and
then just get rid of the kids and you have plenty of time for the Tamagotchi.
Including a kind of cool racing minigame as well. I like going back to that, but the Chow minigame, and I'm gonna say this.
Oh my god. He could, Mucky. Thank you very, 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 very much for the support. Thank you for the 9 months. Thank you for the support. Thank you for supporting me, and thank you for supporting the channel. I appreciate you. Thank you very, 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 very much for the support, mate. Our little kid will be a dick.
I'm a big Sonic fan, and I know I'm going to get guff for this because I know that the Sonic fandom is insane about Chows. But, it's weird. Who plays a Sonic game and is oh man, this needs a monster raising game? I want to slow down from the fastness of this Sonic the Hedgehog game to shove food down the throat of this thing that I can accidentally throw and kill, erasing whatever I put into it. It's whatever. Creature raising minigames were out of place, often very convoluted and unnecessary, but they also could be weirdly addictive. As far as creature raising games go, they're still around. I mean, we gotta...
They're addictive, right? That's why they're there. It gives you that itch to scratch. You know what I mean?
Monster Rancher sequel last year. But when it comes to big budget games, they tend to stick to the core gameplay rather than include a bunch of alternate stuff. And number 2 is intentionally useless allies. People hate the escort mission, and I think that's been well established at this point, but that doesn't necessarily mean having to deal with a burdensome companion is always bad.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of worthless allies. Increasing the game difficulty by making me babysit somebody who doesn't have the common sense to not just stand there and get killed drives me up the wall. Nothing makes me want to cuss at my PC more than when something stupid happens and I had no control over it and then I just have to redo something. Like, that makes me so pissed off.
Now, if you got a follower in a game, they're purposely designed to stay out of your way and not be annoying, and they mostly succeed at that, but they can potentially also make a game less interesting. Most bring up Ashley from Resident Evil 4 as a negative example, but I think having a protector actually did make certain parts of that game more interesting. Not all of the times you had to do it, but one of the best examples of a weak but interesting follower is from Ico. The character Yorda is mostly defenseless, and it's up to you to help them. In any other game, that might seem like a pain, but in this one, the bond between the two characters is built up through the gameplay, and it really works. Now, for the most part, I'm pretty glad that most games have gotten away from forcing you to babysit a useless NPC, but there are a few situations where a good designer has made a game more interesting and engaging with a character who in any other context would be a huge pain. And at number 1 is difficulty-based objectives. Only a few games ever really
Difficulty-based objectives.
attempted this concept, and it's kind of crazy.
Is that GoldenEye?
Like in GoldenEye, depending on the difficulty level, you got more or less objectives to complete any given mission. An example, on the easiest difficulty, Agent, all you have to do in the first mission is get to the end of the level. On normal, called Secret Agent, you have to take out all the alarms and get to the end. And on the hardest difficulty, 00 Agent, you have to take out the alarms, install a covert modem, intercept a data backup, and then get to the end.
I kind of like that, though. Do you guys not like that? Like, I kind of like that. Like, for what was considered, like, easy mode, all you had to do was just get through it without dying. But then as you went up difficulties, they didn't just make the bosses bullet sponges and do a bunch of convoluted stuff. They just said, like, okay, if you're going to crank the difficulty, you need to not only do A, but you need to do B, C, and D as well. Because I get really tired of bullet sponge bosses and bullet sponge enemies that just cause you to sit there and just shoot and shoot and shoot. And you just take so much more damage, and it's just so much more frustrating.
It completely changes the life.
You by far prefer that over bullet sponges? I do, but it makes it more of a challenge. I think so, but I'm definitely open for a discussion on it.
And it rewards players for playing through the level multiple times. Only a few games ever really had this sort of thing. There's GoldenEye, Perfect Dark, Time Splitters 2, that's about it. A few of the EA James Bond games had similar mechanics, but they were way more half-assed. And with a lot of games, playing on harder difficulties just makes the game harder by changing some damage values. These games actually made the levels more complex and interesting. I don't know why this concept was so minimally used and forgotten about. It's a fun idea that makes it really rewarding to go back and play through these games again.
I agree 100%. You don't care for it, but that's just you. I like playing on harder difficulty, but not always the hardest. Being able to get the achievement on a lot of modern games is nice. I get that. I mean, that's the thing, right? That's where there's allowed to be a little bit of a discussion on it.
First run, do easy, and work up to hard.
And that's what I did in GoldenEye. Like, my first runs in GoldenEye, I always just went through, like, Agent and just ran through the mission, so I had, like, an idea of where enemies spawned and the layout of the zone, and then I would progressively play up to more of a difficult playthrough. Now on games, I just normally play like hard or the hardest difficulty because I know that the only difference is I'm just going to take more damage and I'm going to deal less damage. So for me as a gamer, all I need to do is just play the game slower and I'll get through it.
It's actually really great. Quick bonus for you, environmental
What's up, Prometheus?
destruction is a game mechanic. We've mentioned this one plenty of times in other lists, but it's a drum that we still have to hit. Why are there so few games with the kind of destruction Red Faction Guerrilla had? It feels like with next-gen consoles, this should be more possible rather than less.
I agree. I don't understand why more things aren't breakable in games, especially shooters and stuff like that where you can wall bang. And, like, I don't understand why you can't just take out more structures.
And Red Faction Guerrilla didn't just have it. It was a major part of how the game worked. Like, you could complete a lot of the missions by destroying
I remember that game.
a building. But rather, it seems game worlds have become more static rather than more destructible. There's just so much that's been left on the table when it comes to destruction in video games. This mechanic can't peak with a game that's well over 10 years old.
For me, I remember playing that game and being like, I can't wait for the next 10 years for things to look so much better and be so much more destructive. And it just never happened. we reviewing stuff and things? Oh, for sure. We're checking out. There's a couple videos we're going to check out before we get into some Diablo.
It's dumb. The only game that even comes close is the indie game Teardown, which is awesome. I play that game a lot, all the time, even though I'm through all the missions. I go back to it because it's so much fun to just destroy stuff. Why is there not more? And that's all for today. Leave us a
So out of the 10 game concepts that they mentioned that had vanished, some of them were better for gaming and some of them were worse. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the video and enjoyed the commentary. If you have any comments, definitely leave them down in the comments. And as always, have a great morning, noon, or night, wherever you are.